Okay, so let's now create the index.jsp file. Again, the same procedure. Click on example, go to new. It's quite unresponsive now. So new, and same way go to other, inside web, find the JSP file. Now click on next. Now after you click on next, you can give the name of the JSP file. Now as I said, good convention says keep it in the same name as the HTML file that it links with. So index.jsp, and click on next. It shows you the default configuration. Click finish. So now as you can see, index.jsp file has been created with default tags. Now a JSP file is basically a HTML file, as you can see, with the capability of putting Java code within it. So right here you have the title again. So as we did in the previous one, we will give this a title. Since this is where we are processing the login information, we will say this is login process, and then again within we have the body tag. Now within the body tag, here we can start writing Java statements by giving a lesser than symbol and percentage, and the tag also closes with the same percentage and greater than symbol. Whatever we type between these two tags will be considered as Java code. So how does, now as we've seen, index.html is sending these two values. Now how does this thing get them? It gets it through a function called as request. So how do you access the data? So let's say, what is the first one that you're getting? Username. So username is in the form of a string, so initialize the string user and say equal to, as I said, it gets sent through a function called as request. So request dot get parameter. So as you can see, it gives you a whole load of autofills, and out of that say get parameter, because we have sent two parameters right here, that is, and always refer to it by the name that you given, that is username, user ID and password. So which one do we need first? User will store user ID, which is the name. So when I type this, the string user will get whatever value has been entered in the text box, which is being named user ID. So similarly, if I can just copy and paste it and change it to password, since it's also just a string, what have I given it? Have I named it pass? Yes, I have named it as pass. So as you can see, user and pass. So this one will store the password that I have been sending. Now next what we do is we need to connect to the database, since we are going to be checking the database. So how do you connect to the database? So the next two statements are a bit of a mug up line, so please do try to follow. Class with a capital C, class dot for name, n with a capital N, I mean name with a capital N, sorry, and within brackets give the name of the driver. Now we actually haven't included any driver right over here, so we did I did tell you to download the jar file. Now we need to include this into the project, so it doesn't get defaultly included because it's placed external to the Eclipse libraries. Now so right click on the project and come to build path, and inside build path click on configure build path. Now this thing will show you four tabs: sources, projects, libraries, and order and export. Now all that we are concerned about is libraries, so it has these pre-installed libraries, and along with that we need to add external jar. So add the external library, that is the jar. So I've stored it on desktop, so in desktop I have it right here, MySQL connector. Click on OK. So as soon as you do that, you can see that the jar file has been included. Click on apply and then OK. So how do you know if it's actually gotten included? So what you do is you go to Java resources, libraries, we can see MySQL connector.jar. So what is there inside that? You get something, you have so many sub packages. Inside that, the most important MySQL JDBC, and inside this we have the driver class. Now what you're going to do is import this driver class. So what you're going to type right here is, just follow the package com dot mysql dot jdbc dot the class name, since this is the class dot for name, so just give it as driver with a capital D as it is right there. So though I do say it's markup, you can get the actual value from there, and it does show an error because we still have to import a class that I will tell you later. And then so now we've gotten the driver. Now using the driver we have to connect to the SQL server. Now how do you do that? With this statement, java dot sql dot java.sql is the library, so java.sql dot connection and give it a variable name con is equal to driver manager dot get connection. Again, this is a line that you just have to by heart, but it does obviously have meaning to it, as you can see. So you have to connect to the MySQL server. So what is the address of the server? So the address goes as follows. It is jdbc colon mysql colon double backslash localhost. See, as you can see, there's another localhost over here, but with the port number 3306, which is a default port number for the SQL server, slash the database name. So the database that we've created, if you remember, it is called as example. So we will write here example, and then comma, since it's a database you do have to log in. So the login credentials are username is root and the password currently is null, so default also it is null. So as you can see, there is an error, and to resolve this error we need to include a package. So the package that we need to include is java.mysql. So how to include it in a JSP file is, just open the same kind of tag again just before this and create and an @ symbol and say page import equal to java.sql.star. So this will automatically just get that for us. So this is exactly what we need. Class.forName. JDBC driver. Okay, so since you've gotten this, as you can see, again this is says it's an error. Oh, that's because I've put the comma right there, and there's a comma. Plus root comma root. It's not plus, it's comma root. Example comma root comma blank. So this is the format in which you can give it, and yeah, parameter password. This is the string that you're getting there, and right here you're getting class dot for name dot SQL. Okay, and the next statement that you need to write right there is, so now we've connected, these two lines will help us connect to the JDBC driver, JDBC. So next what we do is we have to prepare the SQL query statement. Now how do you check if the login user ID and password are correct? You have to take the table that is users and check if any one of those entries match with the username and password. So the way to take the table users is select star from users, right? Okay, so we have to create a statement. The way to execute a statement in Java is to use object called statement. St is equal to con dot create statement. So this means the statement is created with the permission of the connection. So create statement, okay, and within brackets and semicolon. So this is the statement st. So it's currently null, so we will use it to create our statement. And now whatever tables that you get will be in the form of a relation. Now how do you store it? You store it in an object called result set. Result set with a capital S again. Result set rs is equal to st dot. Now there are various ways that you can execute a query, various functions that execute a query. The three important ones are, as you can see right here, execute query string args. So this will execute a query and result and return the result relation, which is the table. Or there is one other function called execute. This will return a true or false. If at all the result is there, if at all it returns at least one row as the answer, then it will return a true, a boolean statement. And the third important one is execute update. The execute update statement is used to for statements such as insert, delete and update. There we get an int as the return value, as you can see here, int as the return value, which is the number of rows that have been entered or deleted. Okay, so you have to say result, since we need the result set, we're going to say execute query. Execute query, and within the brackets you can write the SQL statement as it is. So select star from users where now since we've stored user ID as user, we will just check if the user ID field is equal to, since user is a string, is a varchar, we need to put it inside double quotes. So I mean single quotes in SQL. So single quotes. And now how do you include this variable? So within single quotes you have to say user and again single quotes and then close the entire statement. So this statement has been closed, but right here this is not getting overlapped with this variable. This is just the word user. So to make it into this variable, put it within double quotes. So it will get replaced by this variable, which is a string. So whatever you pass will be entered right here. So as you can see, it gets changed to user with these three forming a string. So when it actually does pass, becomes select star from users, where user ID equal to, this thing gets replaced within single quotes the username that you give. So after this, we have to check if the result set is true. So to check if the result, if the username exists, we say if rs, which is the result set. Now, how do you traverse result set? What if there are many rows in it? So the functions that are given to traverse it are first, last, and two other important ones called next and previous. So the first one will give you the first row, last function will give you the last row, next function will give you the next subsequent function row, previous will give you the next the previous row, that was the row that is above this one. So since we are at the beginning of the table currently, imagine this as a cursor, we are at the beginning, so we say if r is of next, which means if there is at least one row, it should go over to that. So if rs dot next, so that means if at least there is one row, that means if there is an entry in the table with this username, so that means the username exists. So inside the if, now since a username exists, we need to check if the password exists. Now how do you do that? You say rs dot get string, because whatever is there in the database, we need to change it into string to compare. The password is in the form of varchar, we need to change it to string, so we say get string of 2. Now whatever, if you give it as a number, now see, we've given rs dot next. Now when you say get string of 2, it gives the second attribute in table. So what is the first attribute? First attribute is user ID, second attribute is pass. So every time that you execute this query, get string of 2, it will give you the second attribute's value, so it will give you the password. If I delete this and write 1, it would have given me the username field. So get string of 2, which is the password, and then you need to check if it is equal to the password that you have entered. So you say gs.getString, that is a entry, dot equals, because this is a string, so you need to use dot equals, and within the brackets password, which is the variable pass. So inside this, you now have to see if the password is correct, you must print login. If the password is incorrect, you must say the password is not right. So to print something on the screen in a JSP, you use out.println, and within that, just like system.out.println, you can give a message. So we say welcome plus user ID, so that user has logged in, so we say welcome.user. Now you write an else to this if, which is to check password, so that means the password is wrong. So inside the else, you say out dot println password is incorrect. Password is incorrect. So you say that and close that. So now we've handled these two. Now what we checked in this if, we checked if the username exists, so we need to give it also an else. So we'll say an else over here and say out dot println user does not exist. Okay, so we've handled all the three cases plus user ID. What is the error? Oh, I've stored it as user. Okay, so that's been done. So we've completely taken care of everything in here from the beginning to the end. class.phoning import Java. Okay, so we can't just actually run this because the database still hasn't been created. So next what we do is we will create the database and come back to this index.jsp.